Go ahead and get started if we could. Thank you all for being here. There is a sign-in sheet being circulated around. If you would please execute where indicated, or if there is no place for your name, just go ahead and sign your name and maybe give us your affiliation of who you're here representing, or if you're representing yourself, that's fine too. We have a number of items of just general board business before we get into presentations, and the first item on our agenda would be the review and hopefully ultimate approval of the November 2nd minutes for our last meeting, which have been circulated by Chris. Any motions, comments, or corrections to those minutes? Chair would entertain a motion to approve if there's no changes.
So moved.
We have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
Second. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Steve, you have a treasurer's report for us, please.
You talking about the retirement?
Yes, I'm talking to you, sir. Our treasurer.
Well, we got the balance sheet here, and you can kind of see the, we do have some extras in there. which
Yes,
is
I
nice
know,
to
that's
see.
good.
So, and this is more of a balance sheet form. I've actually have talked to the folks at the Louisville Management District, and they're sending a template so we have more of a monthly kind of detail, like a P&L statement to go off. But you can kind of see the expenses here. Current balance, equity, liabilities and equities, $273,501. Let's see. And there's really just some basic expenses that we've incurred initially in our revenue that we received from the city. So pretty straightforward at this point. Like I said, we won't be using this so much as we will a P&L statement going forward.
Yeah, this is to help bolster what Steve's saying. This is just from our accounting software for my assistant. So we're just trying to track the monies in, monies out. But now that we're starting to gain actually some balance here, we'll move to a little more formalized accounting. But we did get our first check from Sheriff Witt, and we were able to pay all of our bills, which is good, and we'll be reimbursing the city the money we owe them shortly. So we're off and running. But we just want to give everybody a heads up that we do where our money's going. Those checks represent everything we paid to date since inception, which, as Steve said, are just basically startup costs and, of course, our contract with Block by Block. Any questions about those expenditures or any questions about that? Anybody? Okay. Okay, good. David, you want to give us an update on what's going on in your world?
Everything's going well, but right now, the only thing we're mainly concentrating on now is all of the leaf removal. We're doing a lot of that. And there's no, as soon as we do it, it's right back on the ground. But most of the trees are almost bare, so we'll be able to, you'll see better looking results from that. And the only thing that I've seen so far, we're pretty much caught up. We still getting the graffiti, the flyers on the poles and the Uber and Lyft things on the poles. But we're pulling them down as they go up. And one other thing, we did have another guy starting today. So we will have another employee, have someone else out on the street. And I know Mr. Charlie won't be here today, but I just wanted to let y'all know that he had a bunch of these cards that I'll be passing out. A lot of times the people that be feeding out by the courthouse or wherever, I give them a stack of these and ask them to give them out with when they feeding them. They won't even pass them out. And right now, I thought the child was gonna be here and he'd be able to go over things better, but I'm at a loss right now as far as how we're gonna go forward with that, but we're trying.
I understand. Yeah, I was disappointed. Charlie was supposed to be here, but got called out of town. He has confirmed with us he will be at our January 4th meeting. So, but he had been set for today, so Charlie Lanter, who represents the city on the homeless program, will be here on January the 4th, so maybe we can spend some time addressing that, David, at that time, and any questions we can certainly ask now or then. But looking at your report, it looks like you've had a number of encounters. on panhandling and that.
Most of those are right there at Limestone and Hat, especially if a game is going on. They'll post up right there during the game, and they're hitting people as they're walking on their way to the arena. I just called the police on them. I call the police, and they'll come and move them off. But I had one in front of the bank, and the officer came, and he pretty much told me, he said, there's really nothing they can do unless, if they're not stepping out in the traffic, or y'all know the situation with that. But I still call them, and then when the police comes, they do move on once they see them.
Any questions for
I'll
Charlie?
jump right in.
Sure.
I missed last meeting, sorry about that, but leaf removal, how much of that is the responsibility of the property owner? And how much is it the responsibility of this district to maintain? Just
Well,
like
there are
snow removal,
areas
just like
that's-
snow removal or cigarette butts, you know, I hate to keep preaching to the choir, but I've got to do it every time. I mean, I've seen a lot of cleanup, a lot of leaf removal, it's great. But, I mean, how much of that is the property owner's responsibility? And Steve, do you know, I mean, from a city ordinance, I mean.
Well, you know, if it rises to the level of a nuisance, you can be cited by code
Right.
enforcement, but that's not typically what's going on. I mean, this is just the kind of additional cleanup, which,
It's not really additional. I mean, I have to, I mean, we're cleaning up people that aren't maintaining their own sidewalks and properties.
I mean, there are areas
Which is
that,
against what we're supposed to be doing here. I mean,
so,
how am I wrong?
Woodford, can I ask a question
Sure.
about that? So if the government has some responsibility and the business owner has some responsibility,
Right.
what does that leave for us to do?
Well, what we're doing here is above and beyond what the city is obligated to do, in my opinion. And that's things like art, public art, you know, pop-up shops, things like that. I mean, and not maintaining sidewalks. I
So
just-
you just assume we did not
I-
use this
yes.
force to do snow removal or leaf removal or
Absolutely.
litter removal or
I wouldn't
cigarette
even touch it.
butts? Or what about cleaning the sidewalk?
But, I mean, that's the responsibility of the property owner, in my opinion. And it should
Okay.
be in the city ordinances too.
So you would have this group just do promotion, beautification, et cetera.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's a reasonable position.
Right.
If
That's
we're
why we
gonna take it,
voted for it.
You know, then we shouldn't have hired the
Block by block.
block by block.
For sure.
So that's it, you know, if that's how this group thinks, this group, you know.
I hate to come in here every time and say the same
Well,
thing over and over again. But
I understand
this thing's
completely.
gonna sunset in 5 years.
So,
Yeah, I want it to renew, I do.
then I think it's appropriate to have a definitive conversation and set some standards for what we will and will not do, because I agree with you. There's no
Yeah.
point in every month when we meet
Yeah.
having essentially the
conversation,
same
yeah.
conversation, which is, what are we supposed to be doing? So, you know,
if it's something that's out there that the city hasn't done or hasn't gotten to, as far as block by block concerned, it's something that we're gonna get up. We're not gonna leave it there. It just,
Well, my position
If
is
it-
we maintain
it's-
our sidewalks. You don't have to touch our properties. We maintain all our properties.
which property is that?
The blue building, for example, we have people every day
Right.
maintaining those properties.
And there's not an area where we still won't go by there and clean up. It might be cigarette butts
Right.
or whatever on the ground. But like areas where there's someone that's not getting to it, rather than just let it stay there, we'll go ahead and get it up. Now we can say that this person didn't clean up their leaves or what have you, but we're still gonna get it up. I just think that it's something that we shouldn't leave behind, because it makes the whole street looks bad if there's one area that looks bad. You can have a whole block and
That's
have
where the
property
city
owners,
comes in and.
but the city's not doing it,
I-
sir.
Well, it's, yeah,
well, it's a question of what level of resources the city has.
right.
Does the city have the resources downtown or anyplace else to have someone commissioned to pick up cigarette butts? No. That's, you know, it's outside the range of what the city typically
The
does.
city has ordinances that they can enforce.
We do.
Do they not? I mean,
We do. So code enforcement is complaint driven.
Yeah.
If you have a neighboring business that's got cigarette butts on the street, or they're not cleaning up their leaves, then you call code enforcement, and they'll come and see if it in fact violates the ordinance. And if it does, they'll cite that property owner. That's the existing level of service.
One of the issues also is you're fortunate because you've got a big enough facility, you can hire people to do that full time. A lot of these small businesses don't have that kind of resource to do that, which is an issue probably, I would think.
Well, and again, I think it's a policy question. If this body decides that it's more important to have the property owner cited and not to do any cleanup because that's the property owner's responsibility, then we take that away from block by block. But I think it's a decision to be made. And once we make it, then we can go on and have conversations about other things. I mean, my take on it is that we know pretty much what the city had been doing in terms of downtown. And what we wanted to do was enhance that. So one of the things the city has not had the resources to do, maybe they should, maybe they shouldn't, but has not had the resources to pick up all the cigarette butts and to clean the sidewalks and to make sure that the graffiti's up. We just haven't had the resources. It's not what we've decided to do with the budget. So this body was set up to do some of those things. Now, if that was a mistake, and we don't, and it's not just about doing things that weren't being done, but things that the city should have been doing, that's a different story.
Well, another question also, and I don't think the city has cut back what they're doing.
No.
No, that's part of the.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, so.
they're still maintaining
So
what
that's
they've
the other
always
side of
And
the
they
coin.
can't by
you know.
statute. I mean, they cannot by statute. But I think I've voiced my opinion and have every
Problem with the
meeting
code
that I've been
enforcement, Steve,
to.
is time you report the infraction, they come and inspect, and then and if they do find an infraction, they give them a letter or whatever, they have so many days to repair or get it cleaned up. By the time that's all said and done, I mean, we've lost weeks and David's there and it's over with. And I'm on the side, I agree with what Woodford says, it makes a lot of sense, but the practical aspects are, Woodford, if we don't do it, it won't get done. I'm not saying that's why we're here to do it,
If I'm
but.
running a bar on Main Street and got a bunch of patrons of mine smoking, throwing cigarettes out, I ought to be responsible for cleaning up that in front of my property. Do you
Yes.
not think? I mean,
Yes, then the question becomes, what resources does the city have, either to do it itself or to cite someone for not doing it? And where does that fit in the grand scheme of what code enforcement's responsibilities are?
sure.
And what time does it take? And the same thing is true of deploying police if we have issues with people who are panhandling. Is that the most important thing for them to be doing? Or should they be policing the neighborhoods? And, people can see that differently.
Yeah.
But I agree. I think this body ought to be clear about,
And we need to figure that out. Yeah.
And if, for instance, like you said with the bars, and people come out and smoke, a lot of times they would throw those cigarette butts out in the street. So is the property owner, is he responsible to go out in the street and clean those up also? But we'll do it, and if we don't do it, just from one, like when you come in the morning, the amount that's there in the morning, if they don't clean those up, imagine how much that'll be as it builds up when no one is doing it at all. And it just doesn't look good. So we're gonna be there to do it.
We ought to think about, the ordinance could be tweaked to where if we do some of these things that in fact is the responsibility of the property owner, we ought to be able to have the power to assess them or send them a bill for their services. That would get,
I think
it's like anything that gets their attention.
yeah.
We don't have that ability right now, but that's one thing, Steve, that we could, if we move forward, maybe refining this ordinance to give some kind of teeth, because that's how you get people's attention, is their pocketbook,
And I have no objection. I'll just add one thought, and that is that typically you must cite before you can
Right.
abate. You can't simply go and abate and charge people.
Mm-hmm.
When property owners have got tall weeds and they've been cited and they haven't responded, the city at a certain point, after having cited, can then go in and abate and send a bill and try and collect. which is a whole other question.
You have to give the
Liens
period to
and-
cure, and then there's actually one-sided, you have an appeal period. I have a feeling this body does not want to get into that aspect of it. Could we become an arm for code enforcement to abate the problem once they've been properly cited? That I think is an easy answer there, but if we become an independent body that will cite, give time to cure, and then abate, I don't think that's exactly an efficient use of our resources.
But you know, the city, but downtown has put up with, the city has cleaned up the sidewalks. I mean, they do what they do. People have different standards of cleanliness, and maybe you have a real high standard that would fit what Block by Block does, but everybody doesn't. And there's crap caught in the cracks of the sidewalk, along the gutter, at the base of buildings, in these tree wells. And it isn't that the city is obnoxiously dirty, but the city does what it can do. And I thought the whole idea of hiring Block by Block was, I mean, the practical matter is, Woodford, not everybody is maybe super neat and tidy like you are. And it's to have people who devote their attention and
But
time.
we're also the
To
largest payer
Yeah.
of this district. The properties I'm here representing
Right.
pay the most in. And we also maintain our properties. So we're paying for property owners that aren't maintaining their properties.
And that annoys you.
Yeah. It annoys the owners that I represent.
Well, I would just say that there was a baseline of
Is that fair?
cleanliness.
Is that fair?
Well, then what was the idea of setting up a business district and hiring Block by Block? I mean, I was under the impression that Block by Block would do the enhancement, the enhanced cleaning that a lot of small business owners who may not even own their buildings don't do, like power wash the sidewalk, remove graffiti, those kinds of things.
I think the point's been made. We can move on.
Well, we could, they keep track of where they're cleaning stuff and where there's an issue probably with the property owner. We could send kind of a happiness letter to that owner, you know, just saying, listen, we just want to let you know we came by, we noticed this, we took care of it, and, you know, a very nice tone, we hope to see you maintain this the way it should be, or something along those lines.
Or you
It's
gotta
not-
be-
But it just brings it to their
If
attention.
you go to the opposite direction and send it to the district of, here's your public shame of the month. This building
Somebody stand
is
out
once
front.
again the winner for the most time that Block by Block has had to spend.
Are you finding, are there certain buildings that you've noticed that there are issues?
There were a couple of them that were bad, but like I said, it's mainly as far as the leaves and stuff like that. You'll have a buildup with something that you know they can't really control.
Yep.
You can't control it, so we just try to help stay on top of it. We're just trying to help stay on top of it, and that's in most of downtown where there are a lot of trees, especially like where they put oak trees up. It's gonna be a lot of leaves. The acorns over by the courthouse, we'll try to hit the sidewalk best we can. They're just areas that are gonna be worse than others. And as far as Block by Block is concerned, if we see it, we're gonna get it up.
That's a great example. The courthouse, they don't pay into the district, and we're cleaning the courthouse.
I'm cleaning the
That's the same.
sidewalks.
Yeah.
I'm cleaning the sidewalks by the
Any
courthouse.
kind of government buildings, federal or local, you know, we're working on it.
So
Yeah.
should I just leave it messed up if it's messed up?
No, we're not, I think, we're not telling, what we're saying is Woodford's expressing
Hey,
frustration.
The point's
the fact
been made.
that-
Let's move on.
Okay.
But I think you're gonna make this point every meeting though, and I think what we're trying to get to.
And in 5
Because
years,
we've got 20
we're gonna
minutes
see
we've been
whether
talking
this
about
gets, voted on.
I don't disagree with you, Woodford,
Yeah.
but I think what I always like to try to go for win-win, most of us do, and I don't feel like we're there, and I don't know if we're gonna get there, this is gonna keep happening, so maybe, without sounding real governmental, a subcommittee that sort of says priorities, these are things that we all agree, if there's a, sticker on a public bench or something, there's no doubt you take that off. If there's a sticker on somebody's building, is that a gray area? Make those decisions. If there's leaves in the planters, we take care of that, no question. But if there's leaves up against their building, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to get at is we figure out what the priority is and what is a no-brainer. You do that no matter what. When do we send a letter? When, so that we can try to, clean up what the expectation levels are for those guys.
I will say on a positive note that one of the folks in our office who walks over from Short over to the building, the Central Bank building, commented how much cleaner it has been in that area since we started this management district. It was very complimentary of what they're doing.
Oh, they were down here right after Thanksgiving. I saw you, and they were very friendly. I mean, they all speak, they smile. I mean, they wave. They truly are ambassadors. I mean, it's a pleasure to see them out. So I think you've done a nice job. What you may want to think about, and we're not going to resolve this now, we need to move on, is maybe give us a list next week of some of the chronic problems you're seeing, the ones that were kind of where you have to go all the time, and maybe we can hone in on 2 or 3 of the worst case scenarios, try to get the city to help us with them a bit, but I don't think we want to change your direction. We're not saying that. We're just expressing some of our internal frustration of what are we going to be when we grow up. And Woodford's right. We're 5 years from now, if this thing, if it's not pleasurable to certain aspects, then it'll be done. So okay. It's a good discussion, one that we're going to have, I think, again and again, but at some point we probably do need to hone down, as Steve said, to get a direction, a policy direction. Let's keep moving if we could, and I apologize about Charlie not being here because it's set up for him to do that. I know we've got some folks from the church here. I don't know if you all had come here in anticipation of that or just come to be involved, which you're more than welcome, and we're glad you're here, and we hope you will come back as much as you'd like. But we meet every first Wednesday of every month at 8:30 here, and Charlie says he will be here on January 4th, so I'm going to take Chris at his word that he will bring him over here one way or the other, and we'll probably have a presentation on the homeless issue. We talked about it some last meeting with some of our various downtown merchants and some of the frustrations and concerns they have, and so we listened intently. But that's kind of, we'll probably just pass through that report now, and then those letters or postcards, David, will probably deal with those a lot next week time with Charlie, because he's talked about that information. Okay, thank you. All right, let's get on to something hopefully a little more uplifting and some proactive, at least I believe it is. Marjorie Guyon is here today. Marjorie is a longtime resident artist of downtown Lexington, a proponent of community spirit and civic mindedness. I've known her for a long time and have a great deal of respect for her. She and I have been meeting every week since our last board meeting to kind of talk about some possibilities for some public art projects. And so Marjorie's going to present some ideas to you today. There is a packet in front of you. We're also going to put it on the screen here. And I'd like to let her go through it and talk about it, and then we can stop and ask questions. It's interactive, so it's however you all want to do it. But I think it's something, it's one of our charges we probably all do agree with. This is an area we want to look at. You want to get us sealed up there, Brian?
Alrighty, okay, well, we can just go. This is the proposal. I heard about what you all were doing, and I was actually really excited about it because it feels to me like it is a program for civic engagement. And it feels to me that at this time where we are in our country and in our world, that whatever we can bring, we need to bring it. And so I came and I met with Jim, and we talked about what might be good, and I said, I need to look at the neighborhood. So I went and walked the neighborhood and the district and found rooms. And so what you're going to see are, they're going to be exterior exhibition, but I have looked at the city as a series of rooms. The same way if I went to any of your houses, I would go, let's try this, let's try that. So, so anyway, here we go. This is the billboard at Short and Limestone. We're working with Lamar. They very much want to be part of the project, and they are going to work to get those billboards lit at night. So this is what they'll look like lit at night. So that Short Street is really a thoroughfare. The lawyers go back and forth there from downtown to get to the courthouse, and that's a street that a lot of people go down. So that was one room. This is the Myers Building, and it's a beautiful building. It has that beautiful little inset. And, you know, part of living in a city is that unexpected beauty that you see. So this was an idea for that inlet at the Myers Building. And this would be lit at night. This is the Phoenix Building. This is part of a series that I did called Letters I Have Not Sent. And the centerpiece of it is called ESL. And everyone always goes, ESL, English as a second language. And if English is the second language, what's the first language? The first language is love. So this is love letters. The other thing is that wall functions as a viewing wall for the people that are waiting at the bus station. So it becomes, and there could be like a booklet or something online that talks about what all of these pieces mean. And this is it lit at night. Now this is the interior of Festival Market, which is completely deserted space. We have very few interior courtyards where I'll meet you there, I'll meet you at Festival Market. And so this is the Graves Cox building. And I think that it could also be an incentive for people to see we could rent this. And these pieces they can be moved. The exterior ones, like the Phoenix building, those stay there. But all of these interior pieces can be moved. So this is this piece. These pieces are dye sublimation prints on aluminum, and they're very lightweight. So they can be installed, they are UV protected, and they're low cost. So this is in that market on the corner of Esplanade and Main. This is the street between Mill and Broadway, the Festival Market. And the idea was not to create an art exhibition on the street. The idea, like in there are mannequins from Bella Rose and clothing. There's a wonderful hat maker that we could put pedestals with beautiful hats that would cast shadows on the art. We could contact different merchants. I don't want it to be an art exhibition. I want it to be an urban street with highlighting people that are selling things in our city. So, I mean, if you walk down Madison Avenue, you walk down a street, people say we want this to be a pedestrian city. You create a pedestrian city by making beautiful things for people to walk by. So this is a deserted street, and it could be really beautiful. And this is the other section of it. And this is it lit at night. So these are just some initial ideas. There may be other property owners that would like to use some of these pieces. There's a budget in here that shows every bit of the cost. And anyway, this is my proposal.
These pieces will all, if whatever we do or don't do, these pieces will all be owned by us, the district. They can be reused again and again, so they're not like a one-time deal. So if you stick it at block by block over here at the Esplanade corner, that place leases, we can take it to another vacant storefront. We have lots of them in town, so we can use these multiple places, so they'll be recyclable, if you will. The lighting feature, we've talked to Farrah Alford. He's very much involved in pro this. We're talking to Mark Rubin, who owns the Myers building next door, see if we get him to involve himself economically, since it will enhance his asset, even though it's a public view shed. The Phoenix property, of course, is the city's building, which right now are 3 concrete ugly slabs. There's nothing there. I think that's a win for all of us. And so assuming that the government will let us do this, I think it'd be a great thing for us. The costs of Marjorie's put a lot of time in this, and her administrative management project fees are very minimal at best. And so I want some conversation on any of this. This is just kind of get us thinking. The Lamar advertising thing was my idea. I thought it was what I call low-hanging fruit. It's very visible. It's easy to do. Lamar is more than interested in doing a long-term lease with us. I've talked to him 2 or 3 times. Woodford has a contact over there that I spoke with this week, and Marjorie's right. They are committed to help us make this project work and to make it lit at night, which would really make it pop off that street. So, comments, reactions, thoughts. Woodford, you saw some of this. You want to jump in?
I mean, this is an example of what this group is intended to do. Above and beyond, out of the box, thinking something different. How do you promote downtown to be the go-to place? I mean, clean and safe is a given. It's baseline. What we want is something above and beyond as a property owner. Because this is a tax. There's no question. This is an additional tax. Whether you like it or not, it is. We're already paying property taxes to get city services downtown. This is above and beyond. And what this group is intended to do is to be creative and come up with ideas to promote downtown. And this is along those lines, in my opinion. Now, do we need to do the whole 50,000? That's up to discussion here, or whatever it is. I don't know what the total is. 43?
43.6.
Yeah. Do we start with 10 or 20, or do we do 43? I mean, that.
This is, the movable pieces, the interior pieces, I mean, I think it's all great. The question, will the building owners that have these in there, are they gonna have some skin in the game for that? I mean, you look at Triangle Center, I know Farrah fought us tooth and nail about this management district.
I don't think we'll get any money from Farrah. I think.
I know you won't, that's why.
Yeah, I've talked to him. He was quite clear, but he'll obviously give us access. I mean, it helps promote his building, but you got a long stretch.
Right now.
It is in transition. Yeah, so it could be possibly a whole different owner here in 6 months to 9 months. But during that period of time, we've got just blank, empty spaces. It's horrible at night, especially when there's just nothing there. But again, we can take those ideas and push them down somewhere else, because there'll be other spaces that need filling. Now, Ruben, I'm trying to get Mark to agree to kick in some money, because that specifically benefits his building. He just bought it. He's not going anywhere, and that's a piece that could be there forever. You know, during the day and during the night, people walk down there, they'll see it. It's an enhancement for him, so I'm pushing him hard to pay for that, quite frankly. So.
Lighting is not included in these costs at this point.
Lighting is except Lamar.
It is
Lighting is, everything is included. The project management, the installation.
That's great.
Everything. Well, that was the idea of it, is that I have a lot of experience in making things beautiful. That's my job. So the question is, how could you make things beautiful for people that would not otherwise see it? Okay, like not everybody's going to museums and doing this, but like you have city streets. You can impact children, you can impact any people that are just populating your city. But how can you do it so that it's remains good, UV protected, lightweight, won't hurt anybody's property? Well, there's a lot of things that just kind of came together. And anyway, it's like, I think that we should be able to make things beautiful, like important for people, without having to spend a lot of money on them. And that's what this is about. It's a module for civic engagement.
I would just say I like everything. I'd be least excited about that interior, the Grapes Cox one, just because it's less impact. And Farrah really that place does
agree.
need some help,
Yeah.
but I would put
certainly
that
agree.
on Farrah.
there's
I
no
mean,
budget
it is a
in there.
pretty.
Is that one on the inside of the building or the outside?
It's on the outside.
So, I mean, are we exposing ourselves to having, in that area in particular, I think you're really going to think about graffiti and having it damaged in areas such as that, if it is outside and exposed to those areas.
It is outside and it is exposed. It will be lit. The thing is, it's entirely up to you. I mean, I don't know. I've done one of these outside at the intersection of Short and Upper, and it's been up for 4 months and it hasn't been touched.
You know, there is not, in all these public art projects we've done, there's been basically zero issues with graffiti and stuff. I mean, there's a certain, those guys are artists as well, so there's a certain respect, I think, for that. One of the things that, if you looked at, when you come around that yoke on Vine Street, you know, that blank wall on the
Which
Civic
one?
Center, you know, as you
Oh,
come
yeah.
around on the right, it's just ugly. I mean, and they have three big kind of pillars that jet out would be perfect places for.
Well, that's the thing, is that I walk the district, not comprehensively. I spent like 5 hours walking and photographing, and we could sit down and look at all those and say, you guys walk around and say, you didn't think about this and think about this. And these are just, these could work. But yeah, that swirl around there could be beautiful verticals. And the thing is that this is made up of property owners. I mean, if a property owner said, like, I need help here, I think we can help them.
Marjorie showed me many other locations, some of which I said no to, and quite frankly, I took Woodford's position. I was not going to come out of the gate trying to help the Civic Center, with all due respect to my law partner. I mean, they're not paying, you know, and so let's focus on the kind of the areas that are the taxpayers, but not to say we're going to ignore it. It's a great point, Steve, but that Marjorie did bring me a number of areas. I said, let's focus around here and
Well,
here.
that's one of those things they should pay for.
I agree.
They should pay for.
You have no argument.
If we
with that.
started it and had visuals of it, this is here, this is here, this is here, and then went to them and said, for $3,000, for $10,000, you can do this. I mean, I think that there'd be a pretty good chance that they would. But the thing is that there may be a spot that really needs it that I haven't found. And I think that it's a way that we can just do good.
All these movable pieces, I think, are great. That could be ours to move around. Would it be a good idea to maybe look on the permanent pieces that you have exterior to go to Lexington? They got about $500,000 in public art fund to help them kind of come in and help kick in on some of this as well.
You mean to fund some of these projects?
The permanent exterior ones that are not movable.
Well, they can make a presentation to us anytime. Nan and I have talked a little bit on the phone, so I mean, if they want to make a presentation to us, that'd be fine. I know they've got a lot of projects that they've, yeah, you're right. I know what you're talking about.
Do we want to kind of put a call out to property owners in the district to see if anyone that we don't know of is interested in kind of giving up space? And because this was just based on, you know, a kind of a walkthrough. There might be some property owners that not only really want to get involved, are willing to actually, you know, put their skin in the game as well.
It's a great idea, Nick. We just kind of focused on
Right.
the blank
Right.
walls, the dark
Right.
offices, the dark buildings that kind of keep some light here at night. Woodford and I talked about this the other day. You know, after we all go home, this, other than the Kentucky Theater and the garage now with the light, it's black down here. I mean, there's no color at all. It's just dark, and all the government offices and everything else. So we're trying to bring some light to these vacant spaces. But it's a great point, Nick. Yeah.
Well, I agree with Woodford and what everybody said. I think this is terrific.
Yes.
And are you looking for just an acknowledgement to kind of move forward with this?
Well, I'd like to know what projects you'd like to do, all of them, none of them, one or two of them, and empower Marjorie to move forward. I'd like to get something up and going, so, because there'll be a little lead time, but before we know it, spring will be here, and this is a good time to be trying to get some of this organized. I think we could get the Lamar signs up pretty quickly once we get the lighting done, and that could be up throughout the winter. I had approached Lamar about running it from January through the end of the April meet, and try to get a decent deal on the rental of that. Those are two very popular billboards.
Are there no lights on those billboards?
No.
Did Lamar put the lights on there?
That's what we're talking about, right? And they're committed to try to figure something out, because they like the idea. And Woodford, your guy wants to think outside the box. He's a good guy. Yeah, yeah. Chris?
Jim, can I I'll just make a couple of quick points. One is, I think the mayor's office would prefer to exempt the city properties, kind of from Woodford's point earlier, so Phoenix Building and others we wouldn't want considered for this. We want to start with private property owners. But to Woodford and Nick's point, maybe you guys approve some smaller budget, 25 today. If you get going, then other property owners might start to contact you and say, hey, I thought that was really cool. Can I be involved in the next round? So maybe you do some sort of get started, and then that will probably bring in new interest in new property owners. But yeah, I think we would, Vice Mayor Kay and Councilmember Gibbs, feel free to chime in, but I think we would exempt government properties from this round.
Well, I don't know if it's from the government's perspective, but I think from the property owner's perspective, that starting with government buildings is not a good idea, that we ought to be enhancing private property. I would say if you take out the Festival Market interior installation and you take out the Phoenix building, I'd be inclined to authorize whatever the balance of that is to get this project going. 'Cause I agree, it would be great to get something up so people can see it, and then there'll be more interest, and then we can see whether this kind of thing or other kinds of things are what we really need to be doing.
I would think that the Triangle Center exterior would be the most impactful, from my standpoint, but I agree. This is my opinion.
I agree with Steve. I think if we say a 35K budget, I'm agreeing with both Steves. Take the Graves Cox out and the Phoenix out, you're at about 35K, I think, is from what I'm looking at, something like that.
Festival Market.
I'm sorry, yeah, the
27.
Graves Cox and the, no, we want, but leaving Festival, I'm just saying, back out the Graves Cox and
Interior.
back out the Graves Cox interior
Interior.
piece, and then the Phoenix
Got it.
building being government, gets us down to in the neighborhood of 35.
As a pseudo city board, is there any requirement to do an RFP or anything like we had to do for the website?
There is a Public Arts Review Commission, and I don't know.
I think to the UCAR point, it's only if it's on public land, so it's not going to affect private. To your question about the RFP, you guys can talk about that, but I think you could either,
Well, if we don't hit a $20,000, is it $20,000 threshold, Gary?
Professional services, I think, is the
Yeah,
choice.
and these are individual projects that don't, come close to that. I would be hard pressed to believe we'd need to do an RFP, because what are the, some of the exceptions, the uniqueness of the service to be rendered? I mean,
I just want to make sure.
no, that's a fair, no, I'm glad somebody's trying to lawyer up on this deal, because I'm way beyond it, Nick. I'm already here,
I'll just offer this as some ideas. The board could either, you could do an RFP if you wanted to, or you could just solicit different proposals without doing a formal RFP, or you could contract this through block by block, who you've already done an RFP with.
One of my pet peeves is the old Bellini's restaurant building. Did you take a look at that one?
Yes, but the thing is that that's on the list, and actually, I had some of the images in the Graves Cox that were going to be in Bellini's. And the thing is that I think that building is in process
It's
of
just
being
sold, resold.
Right.
And we kind of believe there's gonna be something in that window real quick,
Good, okay.
because that was on our list.
Yeah.
It was, Jay.
It's ugly.
The
Yeah.
second story, or the third story technically, one of the best event spaces in town,
Yeah.
no one talks about. Again, that was kind of where I was going with other property owners, because there are some upper floors that you light them up, you're gonna see them from a distance, and they could be beautiful.
Yes.
And it's just kind of, I'm feeling there's a whole lot of things like that that we don't look at, because we're only looking at street level.
Right.
True. That could be good. Thank you.
I'd love to be able to, Marjorie, y'all think about that, talking to that new owner of that third floor. Nick's got a great point. Because those are huge windows.
Yep.
That could be a really big statement.
Well, the thing is what makes a city at night but illumination?
Yep.
And the idea of having these things illuminated, just these beacons, it's like, we're a city of hope. And anyway, thank you all.
Thank you.
So what's the pleasure of the board? Do you want to authorize block by block to engage Marjorie with these projects absent the Graves Cox and Phoenix building? Is that what we're saying, or what are we saying?
Do we really need to have to go through that?
Personally, no, I don't think so, but if it helps everybody feel comfortable that we're not violating some, I really don't want to go through an RFP, I don't want to put out, I
I'm
mean.
with you, I just want to make sure.
No, but Nick raises a good point. I mean, my involvement with the parking authority has been if we have certain services that are unique enough that we don't do it, or if it goes over the 20,000, if it's under 20,000, we just go on and do it ourselves. And these are individual projects standing on their own. I mean, cumulatively, they're over 20, but I'm comfortable, but I'm not giving a legal opinion. I think Nick's just pointed out to us to think about. That's all. So it's wherever y'all want to do.
One other comment. Going forward, we ought to get a clarification about what we are able to do without going through those processes.
I agree, because, otherwise we're setting ourselves up to run everything through block by block. And as far as the investments committee, if somebody comes with an idea, you have to RFP it, everything. I mean, that's a slippery slope there.
Dave Barbary, I'll check with him.
Yeah.
Get Dave, but I cannot imagine we have to. But
Yeah.
I think that's a good point. Let's get it clarified going forward.
Do we want a tentative approval?
Subject to?
Don?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that a motion, Nick?
Yep.
Second.
I have a motion by Nick, a second by Steve. What it is to approve these projects exculpating Phoenix Building and Graves Cox, and with the caveat that we are able to do this without more formal RFP or any other vehicle. Is that fair? Okay, we have a motion. Any discussion about that motion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Marjorie, thank you. You looks like you've got a project or two to work on. Wonderful.
How will these be branded so that folks know that it's the district?
Good. Well, we can develop a little thing that says, this is the something, let me think about it.
Okay.
And do you have like this is your,
We have a logo.
Yeah.
We have a logo on the website. We could try to get it maybe somewhere
Yeah.
on that, yeah.
Yeah,
we can do a story on the
Once it goes up,
Yeah.
he's gonna write it.
Yeah, he will.
and they could just be, like, we could take the logo and it could be in the window lit, and then it could be on the website, there could be a map on the website that goes boom, 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 so,
Okay.
yeah, good, yeah.
But, if you think about your point with Lex Arts, great point, but think about Chicago. What do you think about as far as public art in Chicago? It's that reflective beam or whatever it is. I mean, you come up with something like that for Lexington, put it somewhere, even if it's on public property, and create, permanent public art would be pretty cool. Head turning, outside of the box thinking. And I know Jim Clark back in the day, had some pieces. John Henry is an artist out of Tennessee, from here. Had some really contemporary public art that, like $2 million. I mean, pretty expensive, but he was willing to discount it. Yeah, quite a bit. Right.
That's a whole nother level.
That's a whole nother level. But
That piece that they have superimposed in front of your building.
yeah, I know that
I
yellow.
saw that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think our first out of the box of trying to tackle a 7-figure project might raise a few eyebrows. Here it is, we're done. Thank you all.
For 3 years.
Come back. That's right. But I think this is a good start. It'll get some conversation. It'll get some people thinking and other ideas. And I think we've had some good discussion about that. So let's move forward on this. And then, but I think, Marjorie, any other avenues, any other blank canvases you can think about and find, you're more than free to bring them back to us. And I think, Chris, you will get us some sign off on all this going forward. I also would like the council people here I'd like some guidance on what we're going to do with the government properties, because that Phoenix property is ugly, it's uninspiring, and it needs to have something on it. And I recognize the optics of it, if you will, but that was one of my favorite spots. And I did not go down that, well, it's government, they're not paying, and that's a great point, but that's a highly visible trafficked area. We'd love to do something with it. So maybe, is there any way the government, you think, would find some dollars to help make that happen? Would they match with us, you think?
Is that a yes?
That's a good question. I think the likely avenue for that is really the Corridors Commission, which does have some funds and has invested in public art on public streets. So that I think if this group was formally interested in making that request, then let's put it in the minutes and we'll take it forward to the commission.
What do you think, Woodford?
Yeah, I think we got to do. Yeah.
Jim, it is in my district, let me explore that.
Would you?
I might have some money.
That'd be great, because I think that's a blank canvas that could really use some help, and it's kind of, I had not thought about, but I did think about the civic centers, because we'd had these discussions, but it kind of got by me on that one, yeah.
Doesn't that corridor committee, don't they have kind of some weird funding mechanism? They don't always get funded, do they?
You want to talk budget? The Corridors Commission in the last few years has had a much more substantial budget than when times were lean. So, yeah, it's not at the top of the list for basic services, but there's an understanding that the corridors coming into town and going through town are important in terms of the way people, react to the city and so on. So, we've had funds for that group in the past, and we'll have this year. So, and I'll also get with Councilmember Gibbs. He's got a little money, and I have a little money, and maybe we can work something out. And which wall are you talking about on the Phoenix building?
It's on the Vine Street.
That whole
Into that building there,
Cross
yeah.
limestone on the left,
Where it curves.
coming down Vine.
where the curve is.
Yeah.
The whole curve.
These are just 3 blank concrete walls, there's nothing on there, why?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll look into it.
That'd be great. Thank you, Steve. Okay, let's move on, if we could, to the public comment for items not on the agenda. We have guests here. Do y'all have anything you'd like to impart? We kind of went all over the place here today. That's the way this committee works. Anything you'd like to say?
I'm here representing American Bloom Lexington,
Mhm.
and the discussion around the public art has been interesting, as that's one of the comments that the judges this year made about Lexington. Lexington's been voted a 5 Bloom city, which is the highest rating that it can get. It was 4 Bloom for the last 2 years. And one of the comments, and they identified a couple of places downtown. I'd have to go back to their evaluation to report to see which locations those were. But they were very impressed with the public art that Lexington already has. And they advised us or recommended that we continue expanding that. That we had a really good start on it, and things looked really, they loved Lexington. One of the judges said she would love to live here. So, and she comes back here as often as she can. And that's Katie Moss Warner, who was the head of horticulture at Disney for 10 years and really transformed the gardens there. And then was head of the American Horticulture Society for many years, and is now a judge, was instrumental in American Bloom getting started. So, good job.
Anybody else? Anybody? Catherine, Jeff, y'all good?
This may be really small. My name is Kathy Mobley, and I work for the Parks Department. I'm also with the American Bloom Group. But we have a lot of banner poles on Vine Street and up past, all the way to Jefferson on both sides. And we're kind of running out of things to fill those with. So if you wanted to do some art on those, we will put those up anytime. If you want to advertise your management group, we could probably do that on a banner. And I know it's small, but just.
No, that's great. Thank you for
Yeah.
bringing think about that, Marjorie. That's interesting. Banner, okay, yeah, I know what you're.
The little.
Uh-huh.
What is
Sure.
the size of the
Yeah, that's the
banners?
dimensions.
I'm sorry.
The size of the banners?
I can get that to you.
That would be great.
If you got it. Do you have an email on here?
Yeah,
should
there's a
have all the
contact on that
photos.
front
I'll have it to
page.
you.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you very much.
And Charlie's here next week. Would it be beneficial to have somebody from the police department here too, so they can kind of cover both sides?
That's a great point. Chris, can you make that happen? We might, the next meeting we might go from this to back to where we were last month, but I think it's a conversation that needs to be had, and that's not an easy, there are no answers, and we won't find them, but we need to have the discussion. And having these experts here would certainly help us a lot. And I know it's a day-to-day thing with David and his folks, so, yeah, it's a great point. Thank you, Andrew. Anything else from anybody? Goodness. Beverly, you gotta have something to say, surely, goodness. Thank y'all for coming, not bad, an hour in and out. Thank y'all very much, appreciate it. We're adjourned.